Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Spider-Verse Retrospectives, and today we're going to be concluding our discussion on the Spider-Girls miniseries as we take a look at Spider-Girls number 3. So, last time on Spider-Girls. So, after Mayday Parker and Anya Corazon traveled to the Renew Your Vows universe to recruit the trio of Spideys in that world, the pair of them wound up staying behind with Annie because it was revealed that she was this special spider totem that seemed to have some kind of connection with the Web of Life and Destiny, and Annie's parents decided that while they'll go to the front lines, they wanted Annie to stay behind, and thus, while they were there, they were going to try and investigate her connection to the web. However, before the trio of Spider-Girls could actually investigate this, they wound up asking, are there any other spider totems that we're not aware of? And so Annie directed them to Oscorp because, in the Renew Your Vows books, it turns out some of Annie's own genetic structure was mixed into people, transforming them into giant spider monsters, including Normie Osborn, who the extent of his mutation was that he grew 2 sets of extra arms, but it still was not exactly something to live with. As such, the trio of them wound up going to Oscorp and meeting up with Normie, who did showcase that he had the spider monsters on standby in an Oscorp facility so that they could properly take care of them. And so, as such, with all the spiders believing that everything was under control, they attempted to have Annie connect to the scrolls they had gotten from the previous Spider-Verse event to try and figure out what her connection was. Unfortunately, as Annie tried looking into the Web of Life and Destiny, she wound up encountering some interference, and when she tried forcing her way through, it seemed to cause a chain reaction across pretty much all the spiders in the Renew Your Vows universe, pretty much causing most of them to go feral, and even furthering along Normie's mutations that he became a spider monster himself and wound up joining the other ones. And sadly, before the trio of Spider-Girls could figure out which spider monster was Normie, they wound up getting some unfortunate interference from the appearance of Brix and Bora of the Inheritors, who wound up sensing a hefty meal and decided, hey, why not feast? Which is where today's issue begins, as the trio of Spider-Girls are trying to figure out what the hell to do. Annie, of course, wants to jump in and help the spider mutates because, well, those are still technically innocent people, and her friend is down there. She doesn't want them to be hurt. However, Mayday and Anya are not letting her get close. After all, one thing, she is clearly a very special spider totem, so they do kind of need her for strategic importance. But secondly, and they consider this one to be a more prominent one, they promised her parents that they wouldn't let her get in harm's way, and they intend to keep that promise whether Annie likes it or not. As such, while Annie does eventually reluctantly agree, she does point out that maybe she can at least still give them an advantage, because after all, they are in an Oscorp facility, and she does know where Normie keeps some of his toys, so Mayday and Anya end up conceding to that point as Annie brings them to the weapons vault, and the trio then met with their enhanced spider strength, managed to pry the door open inside, which gets Bora's attention, though she and Brix kind of just ignore that, just in focus of killing all these spider mutates. However, as they continue on, they begin hearing another booming sound, which they realize is a bit different from the last thing they heard, until something ends up crashing into the room, and that thing is a Green Goblin mech. Yeah, Normie wound up making that in Renew Your Vows. It was part of his whole plot to try and kill off Spider-Man and his family. And he found ways to strip them of their powers. Eventually, though, he kind of turned tail, and his secretary wound up going full villain. It's a whole thing. Point is, he kept it around, and the ones currently piloting it are Mayday and Anya, who are just playing with all of the toys to try and take Brix and Bora down, even just shooting out a massive laser from the thing's chest to try and annihilate them. Unfortunately, though, that doesn't seem to go well, as Brix and Bora just literally brush it off, and then just charge right at the mech, with the intent of just ripping it apart to get to the sweet, succulent juices, in this case, the Spider-Girls, that are inside. However, as this is going on, Annie continues once again trying to connect to the scrolls, and she pretty much just realizes she has to get this right because so many people are relying on her. She needs to focus, she needs to know what to do, and she thinks she does. As in her own words later in the comic, this time when she went in, rather than trying to force her way into the web, she just asked it to give her what she wanted, and the web provided, as one of the scrolls was sadly dissipated, but from it came a portal. A portal which wound up taking the spider essence away from all the spider mutates. And so as Brix and Bora continue ripping apart the Green Goblin mech to get to Mayday and Anya, they see a blue light emanating from all of the spider mutates, and suddenly all of them turn human with the lights that are coming off of them taking on the form of spiders, most likely just showcasing the spider aspect of them being ripped out of their systems, resulting in everybody going back to normal, including Normie. As such, while Brix and Bora are annoyed that they just lost a crap ton of food, they at the very least think they have a consolation prize because, hey, there's still 2 spiders in the mech. So they rip it open, but it turns out in the midst of the confusion, Mayday and Anya wound up flying the coop and ran away, mostly because they realized where the light was going, so they knew it's somehow connected to Annie. As such, the duo of Spider Girls meet up with Annie, and they see her standing in front of the portal, and she just tells them to get inside. And while at first they're asking some questions, Annie just tells them Brix and Bora right behind them, so they decide, well, okay, go into the mysterious portal. As such, they jump right in, and while Brix and Bora try going after them, they end up missing the train and are left behind. So yeah, it looks like that Annie's kind of got a grip on it. However, when the trio end up going through the other side, it turns out that the portal wound up leading them to Loom World. And sadly, it's still not doing so well, because apparently they're on Loom World after the Web of Life and Destiny was destroyed. Which kind of actually opens a plot hole, because if the Web of Life and Destiny is destroyed, then most other forms of dimensional travel are now kind of non-essential. And considering that the only way that Brix and Bora could have actually traveled to the Renew Your Vows universe was by using the stolen Spider Watches from Spider-Man Noir and Spider UK, that means they should have been trapped there. And yet they were there at the climax of Spider-Geddon. Whoops. So, yeah, that plot hole aside, though, the trio of Spider-Girls immediately wonder what the heck they're going to do, and of course, Annie does start explaining what happened to her, with Anya, of course, asking where the scroll went, and Annie having to explain it wound up becoming the portal they used. As such, Anya, for safekeeping, decides to take the other scroll to try and make sure that nothing happens to it. But as she takes a look at it, she notices that it's changed. You see, let's go back to Spider-Verse. If you remember well, in Spider-Verse, the scrolls that the Spider Army had been given were meant to be scrolls that would have given them information to aid them. One scroll contained information on Karn and his history with the Inheritors, which eventually is what the Spider Army utilized in order to win him over to their side. But this scroll is supposed to have information on the special totems, and originally it only contained information on the 3 special totems that the Inheritors were hunting: the Other, the Bride, and the Scion. However, there is new information now on there. Information on the Pattern Maker, and about how she's supposed to be able to see the strands of the Web of Life and Destiny, how she can interact with them, connect the new strands, bring it all together. And ultimately, the trio of Spider-Girls are able to deduce that Pattern Maker is Annie. Something that she's a little confuzzled by, as she thinks, I can't be am I the Pattern Maker? I don't know. That doesn't make sense. It seems weird. But that does also lead to a genuinely nice moment, as Mayday goes to comfort Annie and lets her know, look, my brother is the avatar for the Scion, and he's just a baby. We're Parker kids, so we deal with a bunch of weird shit all the time, but we go... Hold on, let me see if I can... Actually, you know what? I'm going to quote directly from the book, because it's actually a really good line, and I really want to do it justice, so let me see if I can find it. It is... Sorry, I gotta go through a bit of stuff. Here it is. She says, being Parker kids, it's not always an easy thing, but we'll figure it out. And that line prompts Annie to tell Mayday about her counterpart in her world, about how her mom did have a May, and how she lost her, and Annie just tells Mayday, look, I know you're not her, but it kind of fills me with hope to know that if I had an older sister, that she would have grown up to become as great a hero as you. Which, it's actually a really heartfelt moment, and I dig it. And it makes me smile because both Parker kids just look at each other with tears in their eyes, and they just hug. In fact, Mayday is the one that initiates the hug, which I like that, because it really works and really brings together the drama that's been building up for the last 3 issues, and kind of ends it on a positive note. Like, after all, like I said, on both sides of this team, you have had spiders that have been confused by the other's presence. You've had Mayday that looked at the Renew Your Vows universe, at Peter, Mary Jane, and Annie, and thought this, and who saw all the similarities, but all it really did was just remind her of what she had lost and what she probably will never have anymore. But then likewise, you have Annie and her family, and they look at Mayday and they see the person that their first daughter could have become, who Annie's technically older sister could have become if she had lived, if she had been given a chance to grow up. And so what I like is that when Annie finally confides the knowledge of what happened to Mayday's counterpart in the Renew Your Vows universe, it's like they actually build that connection. Yes, their parents may technically be different people. They may have both led different lives, and they are literally from different worlds. But at the end of the day, they're both Parkers. They're both the children of Spider-Man. Then ultimately, and regardless of their origins, they are family. And I love that. I love that. It's just it's like a way of Annie pretty much saying, you may not be my sister, but it's inspiring to see what she could have been. And Mayday just and in a way it touches Mayday because it means because it showcases that Annie is not like a replacement to her or just a what if daughter. No, it's like they're actually family, that they're actually genuinely sisters, and it's a way of making it Mayday feel at home. Yeah, they're not okay. Before you say, well, they're not on the Renew Your Vows universe anymore. Again, what I like is that it allows Mayday the chance to feel that connection to what felt like an alien world to her. And again, considering all the tragedy that she had been dealt in Spider-Verse, it's kind of nice to know that there is a place out there that makes her feel at peace, that she does belong, and I like that. And before you tell me, well, she does still have family, yes, you're right, but again, she still went through a lot of shit in Spider-Verse, so I think you can give her some slack I think you can cut her some slack. However, as Mayday talks about how we are all connected through the web, well, Anya realizes something. According to the scroll, the pattern maker is the one that can weave together the strands of the web. And, well, the remains of the Web of Life and Destiny are still there. So she has an idea. As such, the girls wind up just gathering as much of the Web of Life and Destiny as they can together, and they believe that if Annie is truly the pattern maker, then they might be able to use that connection to gather the strands of the web to make something new, a weapon, something that they can use against the inheritors. Of course, that's dependent on whether Annie is the pattern maker, which we already know she is, but they're willing to take a gamble on it. But unfortunately, if they want to go back and rejoin the fight with this supposed weapon, they need to get a portal open. And since their devices are now useless, thanks to what Spider-Norman did, well, that just leaves the final scroll. And while Annie asks Anya if it's okay, Anya says it's fine. And so Annie manages to use her pattern maker powers, and she manages to open up a portal. And so with a final narration from Annie talking about how she knows this is the right thing to do, about how people are relying on her, and how she knows she's gifted with great power and great responsibility, the trio of Spider-Girls dive right in, ready to help take part in the final fight of Spider-Geddon. So that's where the comic ends. So first, thoughts on the issue. Or Spider-Girls ends, sorry. I called it Spider-Geddon, whatever. But anyway, my thoughts on first, let me talk about the final issue of Spider-Girls. I think it's a proper finale. It's mostly action-oriented, but quite frankly, it's deserved. It's deserved. Like I said, the first two issues were definitely more plot-centered, and they weren't bereft of superhero action in there, but the first two issues definitely did a good job at building up the action and building up the tension, setting up some good character drama and character conflicts that can be built on as the story went along. And it did it well. It moved at a very brisk pace that allowed you to actually absorb everything rather well, while still kind of cutting through the treacle and getting right to the point. It offered us some genuinely good character moments and so forth, but issue 3, it's where all the action has to come to play, where everything finally has to come to a head and they need to get off their asses and get fighting because the bricks and borer are here and they need to get through with it. And I think it works well. It works well. It's really nice action. And seeing Annie finally being able to take advantage of her status as the pattern maker to give herself, Mayday, and Anya some sort of advantages against the inheritors, like with using the scrolls to heal all the spider mutates, get a portal out of there so they can get back to Loom World, and eventually even utilize grabbing the strands of the web, which we know is what she, Anya, and Mayday used to make their spider armor in the climax of Spider-Geddon. It's cool. I like that. But again, one of the aspects that I do like about this issue, the climax with Mayday and Annie, where Annie finally confides in Mayday about Mayday being essentially her sister, or at the very least an alternate version of what her sister could have been. I love that because it's a great payoff for both sides. I mean, in the case of Mayday, we see her kind of coming to terms with things as she uses her experience as both a spider person and as a survivor from the previous Spider-Verse event, to essentially impart some honestly good knowledge onto Annie, telling her, "Look, I know it's a little strange that you're being given these magic powers, but it comes with the territory. Hell, my younger brother Benji is the Scion, and he's only a baby. I know it's weird, but we can take it. We can deal with it." And I like that. It's genuinely nice, and that little bit of essentially sisterly advice is what gets Annie to open up to Mayday and let her know, "Look, there was a May on my world, and they lost her, but it's inspiring to know that she could have been like you." I love that because it showcases that they have built a genuine familial connection. That yes, they may be from different worlds, but they're able to find solace, because at the end of the day, they're the daughters of Spider-Man. Their situations may have been different. They may have grown up in different times, becoming superheroes in different ways, but they're still spiders. They still fight this. They still went on this path. They still went down this path, and they can still help each other. And I love that. And I love that when Mayday learns that Annie genuinely feels that way, she embraces her because it's some form of a connection. It's something new that she's built, something sweet that she's actually okay with, and it makes me smile. I love the way that they go. I love the way that they just kind of do that. Essentially, especially with Mayday learning that she did have a version of herself on this world, and that in the eyes of these people that in a way she probably was a little jealous of, she is a part of the family. I like that. I do genuinely like that, because throughout the story, Mayday's whole thing was that she felt like an outsider looking in, seeing her life through a funhouse mirror, but seeing it being lived by someone else. But then ultimately, that someone else is someone that she finds herself confiding in, and that person says, "I love," and that person ends up saying, that person essentially tells her, "I see you as family," and it allows them to open a window and just invite her in, be a part of it all, and it's sweet, it's nice, and I love it. And combine that with Annie's resolve to just use her new strange powers to help in any way she can. It's a good capstone for her character, because throughout the whole story, she still was dealing with all the weirdness that came from being the pattern maker without fully understanding what it all meant. After all, because she already realizes that she already has dealt with some weird stuff and has been trying to come into her own as a superhero. And then likewise, she still learns about this big war between the spiders of the multiverse and this family of vampiric monsters who want to hunt them down. And then likewise, she learns, "I gotta be something special." I love that. And and I love how her finally being able to embrace that was what made her start to kind of accept it. Like, she didn't try to force herself into accepting it, she just kind of politely stepped into it. She just accepted what she already was, and it gave her control. And I dig that. It's a nice little payoff, and it's a good kind of capstone to her minor character arc in the story. So I dig it. It's nice. So yeah, on the whole, I do think this is the proper finale to Spider-Girls. And as a whole, I think the Spider-Girls miniseries is a lot of fun. It's genuinely good. Hold on one second. Sorry about that, I want to turn off a light. But yeah, like I said, I think the Spider-Girls miniseries is a lot of fun. Is it perfect? No, it's not. I think when you really look at this miniseries, it does have a couple plot holes in it that really kind of hold it back. That really kind of hold it back a little, or at least can get on your nerves. Like how in the first issue, when Mayday and Anya had to explain to the Parker family about the Inheritors, even though Peter should know who the Inheritors are, considering that he was one of the Spider people that was present during the original Spider-Verse. So he should have experience with this, and this is essentially essentially just him retreading old territory. And so, but then on top of, and then again, there's the plot hole with Brix and Bora, because odds are Spider Norman nuking the Web of Life and Destiny has already happened. So Brix and Bora should be trapped in the Renew Your Vows universe. Now you can make the argument that maybe they managed to warp out of the Renew Your Vows universe just before the Web of Life and Destiny got nuked. Like, just before that, which I suppose you could make that argument, but they don't show us that. And likewise, we're not really given any we're not really told in any way that there was any form of time dilation from between when Mayday, Anya, and Annie left the Renew Your Vows universe and went to Loom World. And when they arrived at Loom World, the web was destroyed. So it really doesn't make sense that Brix and Bora were on the Renew Your Vows universe when the web was destroyed, and yet were taking part in the climax of Spider-Geddon on Earth 616. So unless they somehow got divine intervention, I'm going to call that a plot hole, and I'm just going to say it doesn't really make sense when you stop and think about it. So those are problems. But with that being said, I think those are the biggest issues with the book. The rest of the story, it's pretty damn good. It's honestly, at its core, it's a character piece, and really does a great job playing at the idea of having a multiverse of spider people all interacting with one another, especially considering the characters that are involved. A consequence of that is that Anya is sadly kind of put on the back burner, mostly just there to act as the exposition fairy for anything related to the the mystical side of the spider totem stuff. But the really good core of it is as Annie's character arc as she kind of comes to terms with all this, and the character drama that comes from both Mayday and Annie and her family. In the case of Annie, we see her kind of having to wrap her head around being such a important spider totem in the grand scheme of the multiverse, at learning that part of the reason she has certain abilities is because she's the pattern maker. The reason why she can see why her spider sense allows her to just outright see visions of the future is because she can see along the strands of the web, and she can actually see how the patterns form, which in a way does make sense, because the Web of Life and Destiny, while being a foundation for reality, is also supposed to be kind of like a map of our lives. So of course it makes sense that Annie would be able to use her spider sense as the pattern maker to see along those strands and see new outcomes and new possibilities, allowing her to just see the future, essentially. I dig that. That's actually good. I think that's good. That works and makes sense, and kind of wraps up that loose, well, for lack of a better term, thread very nicely. So I like that, but I still like her journey as she tries to accept it and considering the angle it comes at, with her still trying to figure out her place as Spiderling and trying to come into her own as a superhero, mixing all together this mystical totem mumbo jumbo. It works well and creates good drama, as she's unsure whether she's ready for this or not. And finally, and by the end of the story, when she finally does accept what she already is and gains a better control over it, it's nice. I dig it. And then, of course, going back to the drama with Mayday and Annie and her family, I love that because again, it feeds into what makes multiversal stories fun for me. Just seeing these potential what ifs. Just like in Spider-Force, when we saw Ashley and Charlie meeting up, and that allowed us to see a brighter side to Ashley as she interacted with this alternate version of her grandfather. In the case of Spider-Girls, what makes this work is that for Annie and her family, like I said, they see Mayday and they see the person that their first daughter could have become if she had been able to grow up. And it hurts them in a way, and they try to keep her at arm's length. But by the end of the story, when Mayday actually is being nice and sweet and actually giving thoughtful advice, Annie just tells her, I'm just happy to know my sister would have become like you. I like that because it's in an unofficial way, like she's accepting Mayday as part of their family and acknowledging that, yeah, they may be in different worlds, But as far as Annie's concerned, this is Mayday is her sister. And then likewise, it's a similar case with Mayday. Mayday looks at the Renew Your Vows universe and she feels like she's an outsider looking in. She sees what her life used to be, what she would want it to be, the life that she essentially just craves, but the life that she can no longer have. She doesn't, like, her family, while stable in her universe, is broken because of the events of Spider-Verse. Peter Parker is gone. Well, sort of. The ending of Spider-Geddon does show that he was coming back as the other. But her family was irrevocably changed because of what happened in Spider-Verse. So they can't do any... And now she sees this other version of the Parker family happily just going about their thing, having a daughter that's not her, and she looks at it and she feels like she's missing something. In a way she is jealous that she's not a part of all that. That she sees the life she should have had, and she clearly wants it back. She tries clearly pushing those thoughts aside, but she does want it. She does genuinely want to be a part of it. But at the end of the day, the good parts of her still shine through as she tries to keep her mind focused and does try to be nice. And then likewise, when Annie is struggling, she does actually help her out and say, look, we're Parker kids. We deal with weird shit all the time. We can deal with this too. And so when Annie finally just tells her, I'm glad my sister I'm glad my sister would have become like you. It's like it made like I said, just as that's like Annie unofficially saying, I acknowledge you as my sister, for Mayday, it's like she's being pulled into the picture. It's like she's looking at them, the Renew Your Vows Parkers were in a house with Mayday at the window. But now it's like they saw her and opened the window and said, come on in, there's a spot for you too. And it touches Mayday because it feels like that she can belong. That this isn't just a what if, that this isn't someone's life else's life that is being stolen from her. She's a part of the picture. She's not replacing anyone. She's not taking anyone's place. They just made room for her because they care about her. And I love that. I love that connection, and I think it's a sweet way of coming about it. And again, I know I keep talking about how, only one universe, maybe that you only have one universe that you can call home and everyone there is the true thing, but I do still like that they have that connection. Even if it's not official, even if they are not actually sisters, the fact that they can still have that bond is sweet to me. I genuinely like that, and it makes me smile. I love it, and I love it, and I feel like that's the real core of what makes Spider-Girls work. The journey that Annie goes to as she discovers she's the pattern maker, and the great great character drama that comes from Mayday and Annie's family as they both try to come to terms with one another before they eventually kind of accept one another. I love it. It's nice, and it makes the ending of the comic that much sweeter, knowing how united everyone is before they go in to start kicking ass in the climax of Spider-Geddon. So, on the whole, Spider-Girls is a pretty damn good tie-in to Spider-Geddon, and if you want to read it, I think you'll have a good time. It's not perfect, but it's still really good. So, yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I hope to see you again on Tuesday as we check back into the main Marvel Universe and see exactly what the main universe Peter Parker was doing as everything was going down in Spider-Geddon, as we take a look at the spectacular Spider-Man tie-ins. So till then, I hope you have a good Saturday, and take care.